ready for another episode of the Voiceover Gurus podcast. Real talk about the voiceover industry.
Yes.
Great. Welcome back to another episode of the Voiceover Gurus podcast. I'm Linda Bruno and delighted today to be able to welcome to my little tiny podcast TV personality and narrator Brooks Moore. Hello.
Hi, how you doing, Linda?
I'm good. So the show that you are associated most with, because I know you've done a lot of narration work from my understanding. Okay, so we don't want to say this is the only thing you've done, but is How It's Made. And lots of seasons, lots of episodes for that, and we'll talk about that too. But let's go back to when you first fell in love with using your voice. Can you tell me when that was?
Yeah. Interesting. I think the first thing my parents did was they had one of those little pencil Radio Shack mics, and they had an amplifier hooked to the record player, and it had a mic input. So we could, sing along to songs or whatever when we were really little. But the first thing that I started doing, I was raised on an equestrian farm. And the first thing I started doing with my voice was announcing equestrian events.
Wow.
And I kind of decided I didn't want to be an equestrian later on in the future. But I decided that maybe I could use my voice. And so I started using my voice. And people said, "Oh, you have a great voice." So that's kind of how things started. And then I went to, we had a great high school TV program, got involved with that. I went to college during my 10th and 11th grade in high school. They had a TV directing course. And I started working at the radio station, the college FM radio station. So that's kind of how it all got started, and was my first foray into saying names and announcing things.
Where was
this?
it?
Was on the East Coast, all up and down the East Coast, outside of Washington, D.C. suburbs, and up to New York and down to Florida.
And you said, this is something I want to pursue. How crazy it is, even if it is a crazy field, because it is.
Very much so. And I think one of the things that I really like is the fact that I also direct, I also produce and film, do all kind of different things. So I love the aspect of being able to work with talent as well as to be a talent. So that's not my full-time, or I should say my only gig, being a voice talent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have a production company, right?
Yes, yes.
I was looking it up, the Bonne Maison.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about your production company. It seems like you produce a lot of interesting projects.
Yeah, so my wife started this production company about 23 years ago, and we do all kind of different projects, from corporate stuff, commercials. We do stuff for Discovery Channel, Science Channel, documentaries, a little bit of everything. And it's a lot of fun. I get to work with a lot of talent too, because, as you know, in this business, just because they didn't pick your voice today doesn't mean that you aren't any good.
Yes.
It means they didn't pick you today, but they're going to pick you another day. So just hang in there. So, that's how that goes. And I'm really fortunate to really live my dream in a way, and doing all these different projects, as well as being able to voice work as well.
So your production company, if I read correctly, it's in Baltimore?
Yes, Baltimore, Washington area, although we travel the country and the world doing different projects. We're finishing up a project called 33 Islands right now, which was shot off the coast of Italy, around the whole coast of Italy.
Oh, wow.
And over like a 5-month period. That was really neat. And doing different things. I also MC different events for clients and things, as well as narration and directing.
Do you think you prefer producing? Is that like your favorite part of the business, or do you have a preference?
I don't. And I think one of the beauties is, every project is new, and every project has a challenge to it. And the other day, I was helping out at this church, and they said, "Hey, can you read? This is a video. It doesn't have any narration to it, but can you do a narration to this video, which has graphics on screen?" And okay, it was a basic job, but like really trying to put yourself into what is the purpose?
Hmm.
What do you need to be here? What do you need to communicate? And that's kind of how I think about all the jobs that I do. And I look at it from that perspective of
Right.
who's the audience?
Hmm.
What do I need to do? What state of mind do I have to be in? Because you can't have a bad day and then just go in and do a voice job that you need to sound like you've sounded for the last 25 seasons. You have to really, there is a mind aspect to it as well. And I really love that challenge and getting in the right headspace to do whatever job it is.
How do you, I know what, sometimes I try to just block things out. If I'm going through something, like when my father passed away, obviously emotional time. So there was about 6 months there that I actually was physically affected by it because my throat started to tighten. And the craziest things happen. When your brain is grieving or going through a process, you're like, my moneymaker is tightening up on me, so therapy. But I would just kind of put on that face like, nope, snap the fingers, it's showtime in a way. No matter what it is, you're dealing with a client. It's like you've got to shut everything out. And it's difficult. It's difficult. I mean, do you have anything that you do in particular to help you with that?
Well, it's funny. My wife says that I could be in a big argument with her in the car, and as soon as we get out of the car and I walk in the door at work, I'm a completely different person. So for me, I have the ability to kind of turn things off, but not always. So maybe it's listening to music. One of the things I really love doing is if I can understand about the job I'm doing, and like I said, who is the audience? What's the music
Mm,
sound like that was picked for it? So I can really dial in just exactly what's needed or what I'm asked to do.
hmm.
And that helps me really kind of get my head really focused on what the job is by taking those elements in and really processing them.
So the many, many seasons that you've worked with, how it's made. This is on Science Channel here in the States and then Discovery Channel in Canada.
Yes.
So how far in advance do you get the narration, the scripts or the topics? Do you know? Like how far in advance do you know?
So the show is produced in Canada, and the United States buys it. The U.S. division of Discovery buys the show, and what they do is the producer takes the show, takes out some of the Canadianisms in the script,
Mm.
and then I get the script. I look at the episode, and I'm looking at the script while I'm looking at the episode, and then I go in my booth. I have the producer dialed in on a phone patch, or nowadays we can use Zoom, and I
Mm.
locally record it and send
Okay.
in the files, and then the audio mixer mixes it into the show. And one of the things about how it's made is that it's not super tight, so there's plenty of space
Mm.
to
Hmm.
fit the narration in, and usually it's not like this has to be in 2 seconds, so there's not timing cues. And I just read the script, and
So
I
you're not
always
you're not visually seeing something.
well, I used to.
Okay.
When I first started, I asked to be able to see the playback as I was reading to it,
Hmm.
but that's quite expensive on their end,
Yeah.
and so that ended up, they said, could you do it without that? And I said, of course. But I do love to watch the episodes first
Mhm.
before I do the script. I don't want to just read the script without watching an episode. So then, it might be that they have their audio person mix it, and then maybe they'll air it, another week or so after that.
Do you wind up doing a few episodes at a time?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So the most episodes that I prefer to do would be three. If I have to do like four or five, that it's like it's a lot. And I prefer like to keep it at the max 3 episodes. to
Hmm.
keep it, the same pace and the whole thing going.
How long does that take you?
So an episode is about 22 minutes, and it takes me like 35, 40 minutes. I mean, it's gotten so like second nature to
Right.
do it in a way that it's pretty simple. But so the process is we do a segment and then we go back and do pickups. And I might do a pickup during a segment if I felt I did something wrong. I'll go back and do the pickup. But we do a whole segment and go back and do the pickups as individual takes, and then we move on to the next segment. That's how we do the show.
Okay, gotcha. So you're recording on your end out of your studio. Okay. And then I guess you just clean things up as well before you send it since you're doing it on your own?
No, I
Or
send
you
it.
don't
I send it out to the
just raw?
because they have amazing, audio people.
Hmm.
Now, if I'm doing something, let's say someone calls me up from a company and they're like, man, we love how you do how it's made. Can you do like a how it's made for our heart valve or something like that? Then I absolutely clean it up. So one of the things that I love, because I love the technical aspect of the business. So like
Hmm.
I've used Pro Tools forever. I go in Pro Tools and take out all the breaths and really make it sound nice. Um, which is what they do when they're processing my stuff at Discovery. The engineers do that. But since I don't know who is going to be utilizing it, I make sure that what I deliver is a finished product in a way.
Very nice. So how did you wind up working with Discovery Channel?
Great story. So my wife's production company, we had a couple of really great clients, and one of them went bankrupt. And I had a previous company before, and one of the guys that worked for me before went to work at Discovery. And he said, if you ever need to pick up any extra work, let me know. So I called him and said, look, I don't know, this company went bankrupt and I got to take care of my family, whatever that takes. So I went down for an interview and started on Friday and started working on Monday.
Mm.
Now, what I did was I worked the second shift because I didn't want to completely leave my wife's company high
Oh,
and dry during the day.
mm-hmm.
So I ended up doing that, and one of the editors was working on a show for the head of the Science Channel, and it was about Leonardo da Vinci.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is Discovery, a lot of times for these one-off docs and stuff, they get in shows from the UK. Maybe the BBC did it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a full hour, and they have to cut and put commercial breaks in it. And there's some rewriting the teases and all the in and outs and all those kind of things. So there's a little bit of writing involved, and of course they don't want to waste the narrator's session time by
Mm-hmm.
doing it 6 times. So they get a rough a scratch track, they call it, done. And
Mm-hmm.
then when they're ready to do it and the script's done, they get whatever narrator they want to read it.
Mm-hmm.
So now what's nice is the BBC sends all the splits of all the sound effects,
Mm.
and they are just so beautifully done.
Wow.
So because I use Pro Tools, the guy's like, I don't have that great a voice, Brooks. I'm like, hey, I'll read the scratch track. So I read the scratch track and I mixed it all in as if it was a final piece.
Oh, nice.
And the guy heard it and he said, "Oh, Brooks, I really like your voice. I already have someone picked out for this show, but I would love to use you in the future." So a month later, he calls me back for the first show that he hired me on, which was about the monitor being raised out of the river in Virginia. It was one of the ironclads in the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll never forget that first demo I did was that Leonardo da Vinci show.
Wow.
And so what happened was I would work with different producers at night time, and I would be doing different things. And, someone's redoing a show, they might not have the narrator picked out yet. I'm like, well, I'd be happy to read a scratch track for you or something if you want.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say, yeah, okay. So I ended up working on all of the different networks, TLC and Discovery. They had a Discovery Health at the time and different ones. And then Steve Burns, who was the head of the Science Channel, says, Brooks, I've got this show from Canada. It's called How It's Made. They say it does extremely well there, and we're going to try it in the US market. And I would like you to be the narrator of it.
Ah.
I'm like, okay, that sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know, at the time, I didn't know how well it was going to do. And the funny thing is, the show is real simple. It's 4 segments. There's no on-camera person. It's all narrated, basic music, but it just tells the story of what's being done or built or how it's made. And it just started getting legs, and it did really well in the ratings, and it just was a hit. So I was really fortunate that Steve gave me that opportunity, and he's the one that gave me that first opportunity to
Hmm.
do that show about the monitor. So I always try to pay it forward as well, and I know for sure in my life, many people have given me that chance
Yeah. Hmm.
to succeed and show what I could do. And so I always like to do that and mentor younger people or as well and give them a chance. And it's awesome to see someone grow
Yeah.
and really make something of themselves that you believed in that they
Oh,
could
for
do
sure.
something. Yeah.
Sure. On a performance perspective, as a narrator, how many different styles do you feel comfortable performing?
That is a great question. And one of the things I had on my website, which is not anymore, but I had all the different styles that I would do. And before I did How It's Made, there was many different styles. There was, the classic
Hmm.
deeper sound. There was one about fireworks that's kind of more up and whole different reads and science-based shows about health, about babies that were twins that were separated at birth.
Hmm.
And what was really interesting was I got a chance to really, like I said, dial in something,
Hmm.
a thought about how something could go. And most of the time, I was really fortunate that the producers liked the direction I was heading in when I
Mm.
interpreted what the script was and what the show was. And like I said, that whole thing about listening to the music, listening to the on camera dialogue, all these elements make up that space that you get in your head
Yeah.
to be, you can call it a character, because,
Right.
you know, when I'm doing today on How It's Made, I don't talk that way every day,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
but I'm that character for that show.
Mm.
And everybody knows that character that's listened to that show. So what happened was, obviously I found amazing success on that show and I'm so thankful for it. But I also was thought of as that show.
Mm. Okay.
And people kind of forgot about that he has other capabilities that he can do. And I really enjoy that, now I can do that based on whatever I'm reading and
Hmm.
whatever I'm asked to do. I get a chance to interpret it in a way and see if the producer likes it. And if they don't, then try to give them what they're looking for. And that's
Mm.
a pet peeve that I have when I'm working with talent when they don't take direction.
Ah, yeah.
It's really, it can be very frustrating. And, you know, describing a voice or describing music are two very difficult things. I might have the words in my mind, and you might have different words in your mind about what that means.
Right.
So, what I try to do when I'm directing talent is I try to give them an example of what I'm looking for. I never try to make someone sound like me. Everyone is unique. They have their own voice. There's no two voices that are exactly the same.
Right.
You have a gift. And if you learn to be able to utilize that, you can create impact and you can potentially earn money doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an example. There's an airport. Okay, so the end of the spot is a tag and it goes, my BWI. And the talent's reading it, my BWI, right?
Hmm.
And I'm like, can you bring it down on the end?
Yeah.
Now, that's how I'm describing it. And I'll say, I'll give you an example. My BWI, right? and they keep coming back with the same thing that they're doing and they don't get it.
Right. Yeah.
So that's like, you know, so I might have to go in post production and
Yeah.
repitch them at the end or something. But it's really important that as a voice performer that you practice, you have other people listen, you listen back to yourself and see about taking that direction because that's really important to do, especially when you're working with people that are really professional
Hmm.
that expect you to be able to do that, and they've
Sure.
hired you for your skill.
For sure. I coach students now, but there are some, that unfortunately don't have the ear. And I hate to say it, but if it's almost like if you don't have the ear, I can't teach you how to have the ear. And I'll say to them, no, we're doing a downward inflection. You're going to go down. And I'm like, use your hand. Let's bring physicality
Right,
into it
right.
to try to help. And some people just can't hear it. And I'm thinking, well, if you can't hear that, you're not going to work because no one's going to have the patience. They want to direct you. But it's one of those things, I guess, that you're either born with it or you're not.
You know, I think some ways that's true.
It's learn it, though.
I try to even if I take people through the notes on the piano and I
Mhm.
say, let's work on, I'm not saying you have to know this is a C, but just hum along with it
Yeah.
and learn and teach them, okay, well, we're going to go back down B, A, G, F, and we're going to go down the scale. So I try to do that a little bit because, like you said, some people don't have that natural ability to, let's say, play music because they've heard it, like Let It Be, I
Hmm.
can play Let It Be, but I started musically as a kid.
Hmm.
So I'm slow at reading music, but I can play by ear. So that all, what you're talking about makes sense to me. But like you said, some people don't get it. So how can I overcome that blind spot that they have? Because we all have blind spots, right?
Right.
In aspects of our life that sometimes people don't even tell us, and they just, maybe, hey, Brooks, I mean, he's not getting that too well. But anyway, I try to work with people and help them out with those blind spots. And, sometimes they might not be the best fit
Hmm.
for that. And I would, let them know that if you want to get there, you're going to have to really try to develop that skill set.
Hmm.
And if not, it's okay. You can always do other things.
So when you're narrating for how it's made, and you've done so many seasons of this show, what do you, while you're reading the copy, are you visualizing it? What are you thinking?
So my saying is, I own the words.
Ooh.
I don't read the words. I own the words. And just like I talked to you just now, and I said, I own the words.
Hmm.
I softened my tone. I brought it down, leaned in. And the thing is, that's a subtlety
Hmm.
that people don't even think about, but it creates impact on them and they
Right.
listen. And so when I'm reading how it's made script, I'm really thinking about describing something that is easy to understand. It might be hard to understand, so I need to make sure what I'm saying is clear and that people can process what I'm saying properly. And it's not me reading a book.
Right.
And that's when I try to help people, I try to help them, I say own the words because that's just like my term in saying it. But, a lot of people present, whether it's voice work or maybe they have a course they're doing, or
Hmm.
maybe they're on Zoom
Hmm.
and they're reading and it sounds like they're reading out loud. It doesn't sound like they're telling you a story.
Right.
And that's the difference. Like, what's that NPR thing? The Moth Radio Hour? You heard of that?
No.
Okay, so it's people telling stories.
Okay.
and you're at the edge of your seat listening to this story. And whether they have it memorized or they're reading it, I don't know,
Can't tell.
but they're delivering to me so well. And that's what I do when I'm doing a presentation in person in front of people. And I ask for presidential prompters.
Oh, wow.
And the reason is because I want to deliver it to you where I'm looking at you.
Oh, yeah.
And I can go back and forth. And I'm reading like an award show script. So I
Mhm.
need to stay on. I can't just memorize this or make this up for an hour and a half. All these people's names, how to pronounce it, why they won, what this person said about them. But the way I deliver it, people feel connected to me, what I'm presenting to them about this person.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that, and I'm reading, right? And I
Right.
practice the read, but I'm going back and forth and looking at the audience and reading to them. And, it costs the people a couple extra dollars to have that for me instead of me looking down at a paper, but that's how they used to do it.
Yeah.
And the board members would have to read the stuff. And, I've been doing the job now 6 times
Oh,
because I
wow.
did it once. And they thought, man, I don't have to do that. He can do this and make it so that we understand about this person, the beauty of what this person's done and why they are award winning and deserve the award.
Hmm.
So that's a lot of fun to do.
Yeah.
However, if if I couldn't have the resources I wanted to do it,
Right.
I would probably come up with something to help me have those resources to do it and not put it all on them. Let's just say, right,
Hmm.
I'd have some way around working through that issue. Maybe it would be a monitor at the back of the room, whatever. But I would be able to, because it's so much more important for me to deliver a good job than to deliver something that I can't do a good job at.
So as far as bringing that a little more intimately into our own booths, would you advise maybe raising the copy more to eye level to help with some semblance that there would be some connection of a human in front? I'm just trying to think of what we could do.
Well, okay, right now I'm looking directly into my camera lens. You are below the camera lens, and I'm not looking at you. I have you as part of my peripheral vision, but I'm looking directly into the lens.
Mm, mm,
And so, what I do when I'm doing a seminar, I use a teleprompter, and I
mhm.
have the camera behind the prompter, and I'm looking at you and giving you my eye contact as if I was talking to you in person. Because there's nothing worse than someone looking down at my water bottle or I'm looking at my computer screen and I'm talking to you. And these days, with how much stuff is actually done on Zoom and those platforms,
Right.
like when I'm working with people, I'm like, look, you can get a really cheap teleprompter. If you just need your notes on the prompter, great. If
Hmm.
you'd like to have your script, put your script up there, practice it, and deliver it as if you're talking to someone. Do it in your words.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes what I've done is I've done a presentation the first time I did it. I transcribed it, went back in and took out little things I didn't like. I put that back in prompter and I delivered it just like I did it the first time, but it was cleaned up. And
Hmm.
I'm actually reading the script. So that's what I recommend to do in really, for sure, holding the script up. You want to be at the right posture. How it's made, I've always stood up when I read that
I
script.
was going to ask you, stand or sit.
Yeah, and most of the times I do. If it was like an all day session, that I probably would sit down. But hours, a couple hours at a time, taking a break, I always stand. I just like to project better that way.
Yeah, agreed. Your production company now and you as well. I see them behind you, your Emmys. You you've won 8 Emmys.
Yes.
Do tell, for what exactly? For your producing, directing, narration?
Well, I have to say, I would like to say that it's a team approach, and the entire team that works here has been involved in every aspect. And, whether I get something as a director or producer, it wouldn't have happened without the people behind me that work here
Yeah.
and make things happen. So I really think of it as a group prize for,
Mhm.
campaigns for different commercials, documentaries, stories, a little bit everything that
Yeah.
we've won over the years with that. Yeah.
And I can imagine with all the years of you doing of how it's made, you must have a lot of little bits of information in your head that you can relate that
Oh,
may be
yeah.
useful or not. I don't know. It depends.
Yes. Well, I was always curious as a kid, and I would take things apart and put them back together to see how they worked.
Oh,
So to be able to do that show is like, oh my gosh, this is like a
yeah.
dream come true as a kid, in a way.
Is there a
So
favorite for you?
there's so many different episodes. I think one of the things that I didn't like was how some food was made. There was I think a Scottish food called haggis, which is like
Oh, I've heard of
intestines and all kind of stuff.
that.
I don't know. But oh man, there were so many different things made. It's hard to kind of pick just one favorite because there's so many amazing things that are put
So many
together.
seasons too. Yeah.
Now, one of the biggest things that people have asked for is a how it's made on how it's made.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
That might
that, that
be
could
put
be,
into the pipeline there.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
So now I also saw that you have a course that you teach, the Unleash Your
Yes.
Voice. Yeah, yeah. Tell us
Yes.
about that.
So, Unleash Your Voice is a course that I put together through all the different years I've been in this business and doing things. And the course is really for people that either want to get in the business or people that are in the business that would like maybe some other techniques. And it's also for executives. I've coached a number of executives. Like when I'm out on location, working, and we're doing a video project out on location as a director, I'm going to try to help that executive do the best job that they can in presenting.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like just natural for me to offer that. And like I said, I'm not trying to change them. I'm trying to get the best out of them and just dial them in to what they're trying to do.
Mhm.
So I developed this course called Unleash Your Voice. And there's a couple different versions of it. And sometimes people want just personal one on one coaching. But there is a workshop that's coming up, a free workshop coming up this weekend. And then there's a course coming up on March, I believe it's the March 6th, I think. March 8th. Yes.
Mhm.
That's a 3 hour training session that I'm going to have and go over different techniques. One thing is we work with a cork. I learned that a long time ago, and that helps you with your diction
Of course.
and speaking words properly. And you use the cork, you put it in your mouth, you put it in your teeth, and you make sure your lips go around it.
Oh, interesting.
So you're basically, your vocal cords are a muscle, your
Hmm.
lips are a muscle, and helping exercise them, you can do that with a cork, which is a great little exercise. Another thing that I really like doing, and I found people really enjoy, is on these workshops, we'll take a script and each person gets a chance to give their interpretation of what they believe it should sound like.
Okay. Hmm.
And one of the nice things is that when you have a group of people, I like to work with small groups only, but you have a small group of people, I don't ever tell them how to read the script. At the very end, I might say, this is how I interpret it. But because you're with a group of people, you get to listen to how you did the script and how this person did the script. And then once you go through it, we go back through it and we work a little bit more and give you a chance to interpret it differently this time that you have a second shot at it.
No, it's great.
And then I might take you through, well, this is what I'm seeing here, like a turning point in this script. Can you make that turn for me and kind of help push them to dial in some of those things with their voice to make it more impactful so that I can really understand what the script is talking about.
These are all narration scripts?
Pretty much, but someone could bring anything they wanted. It could be it could be a book. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I just, a couple of the ones I've done, I've just brought in a couple narration scripts that are basically on the same topic, but they are one's more serious and one's more kind of up uppity a little bit. And that's my interpretation of them, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fun to see people, give a shot at what their thoughts are on it.
Right.
One guy I had was he's a writer, and he's thinking about reading some of his books that he's read that he could do for Audible and stuff. So there's that. And then we kind of work on some other techniques about how to improve, how to practice, how to work with pitch, how to take direction.
That's a lot of
We
information.
talked about, yeah, it's a lot of different things.
Mhm.
So that's really part of it. And then, in some of the longer workshops, people bring in what they want to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also get a 1 hour one-on-one session
Very nice.
to work together on trying to really dial in how they interpret it, because it's all interpretation, right?
Right.
It's like, here's a script. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to ask questions? And that whole audition process where all you get is a script, you get nothing else. Here's the
Right.
audition, and you've got to come up with something that hopefully works,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe it doesn't.
Right. Talking about that process of everybody reading the same script, we do something similar in our community, and it's a free community, the Voiceover Gurus community. And every week, Mondays, I post a script, and folks are encouraged to record their version. I give no direction, nothing. And it depends. We'd had an e-learning one last week. This week was kind of a fun commercial of a character. And they upload it, and everybody gets to hear everybody else, and people vote on who did the best.
Nice.
And they love it because they get to hear, again, someone else's interpretation without the guidance. We don't coach them. It is literally, how are you seeing this spot? How do you hear this spot? And been doing it for a while now. People really seem to get a lot out of it.
That's awesome.
You
That
know,
is so awesome. I have a coach, and I believe in hiring people better than you
yeah,
that can help you learn.
yeah,
So the coach I have, I was up at a studio in New York, and I was like, well, I don't just want a coach that is just coaching because they're not. This is ignorance on my part. I'm just saying it
they're
now.
not working.
Right, right.
Right.
Okay, so I was a little bit concerned about that because I'm not saying I thought I was better than them, but that was an ignorance on my part. So I will say that, and I don't think that way anymore. So the guy's like, yeah, there's this coach who comes in. She's from LA, and she comes in, and the people in her workshop are like the top people in the business, and you ought to just audition for her to see if she would take you as a student. And I did, and she did, and it was really amazing to hear people that are, you would recognize their voice,
Yeah.
like on some movie trailer or something like that. But to work with them and see how everybody interpreted the same script, right?
Yeah.
So that whole thing, that what you're doing is, I think, really, really, really great. And I would say that what I've learned with trying to think more up here is that you can learn from anybody,
Yeah.
and you don't have to be just the best in the business. You can learn from anybody's interpretation. And so I really promote that. I think that's great what you're doing and promoting that. And everybody can learn by listening to everyone giving it a shot, and everyone is interpreting it in their way. And
Right.
that's the thing that I make a joke sometimes when I'm speaking about how, probably one day I'll be replaced by AI. But will AI know when is the right time to say today on how it's made, right?
Right. Exactly.
Or is it just going to read today on how it's made as if I'm talking about anything else?
Right.
So that's the beauty of people interpreting a script, whatever assignment, and it's such a skill builder. I
Hmm.
think I think what you're doing there is really incredible.
It's just that, as you know, over the years, uh, w the majority of the time, unless you're in charge of casting or you know who's casting, we have no idea who's going to book this job. And or the reason, it could be the smallest thing. And so therefore, why not, let's hear everybody's interpretation because there's no right or wrong. It's just
Exactly.
express yourself. Let's hear it. I have people in the group that, the lurkers, they don't participate. Well, that's fine. At least you can hear other people and then maybe get the encouragement that, oh, you know what? I might want to try this too and throw my hat in the ring on the, but yeah, we don't know. People are like, well, how do you book jobs? I'm like, okay, I when the with the auditioning process, no clue. I just give it my best, do the best performance, try to have a connection, feel good about and then let it go because we don't know. Beyond that, with the business, do the business aspects of it, and then that way you can continue a relationship. But yeah, it's such a
Yeah, I agree. And as I said before, just because you didn't get chosen doesn't mean you're not good. It just means that they didn't choose you today. And I believe you will be chosen if you keep working at it. There's going to be someone that is going to connect with you and how you deliver. But it is, the rejection rate's high, but think about it as just you weren't chosen today.
Yeah, that's a great though. Wonderful advice. A good way to wrap things up as well. Very nice. Nicely done, Brooks. So give me the website where folks can go and possibly register for your Unleash. Is it unleashyourvoice.com?
No, it's brooksmore.com.
Okay, brooksmore.com. Then they
Yep.
can register for you because your course sounds really, really good.
Thank you. Yeah, anybody, and I will also look at your site and maybe I will give a read to a couple of your
Oh
assignments just
my
for
gosh.
fun. I'd love to.
Do you know how much people would love to hear that? Yeah, I'll send you the link to the community.
And you know what? I might vote on someone else. I probably won't vote on me,
Yeah, well,
but I will vote on something that I really like, and that could
oh,
be anybody.
yeah, that's great. Oh, I love it. Thanks so much for joining me today, Brooks.
Thanks
It's
for having
a
me.
pleasure.
Take
That
care.
wraps up another episode of the Voiceover Gurus podcast. Head over to voiceover.guru. We've got our workouts, also an easy link to get over to our community. And I hope everybody has a good rest of their day. We'll see you next time. That was lovely. Thank you
Thank you so much.
so much. I'm just going to stop.